Thank you for coming. I'm Sheila Siegel, and welcome. Tonight's presentation of Money and the Impact of the Economy and Our Relationships. Tonight's event is sponsored by Yeshiva Yaakov and Better Beginnings, an organization dedicated to helping our fellow Jews and to inspire Achdus and promote peace and Klal Yisrael. Before you leave, if I don't already have your email address, please write it down for me so I can keep you apprised of future events. I'm very pleased to introduce Sharon Chambers, who's presenting tonight's event. She is a clinical social worker who maintains a private practice on the north side of Chicago. She earned her master's degree in social work from Loyola University and is a board-certified diplomat in clinical social work. She's a longtime member of the National Academy of Social Workers and of Nefesh, Orthodox Mental Health Professionals. In addition, she is a certified addictions counselor. Her primary areas of clinical expertise are couples counseling and working with individuals dealing with life transitions. She provides counseling to individuals and couples with a wide range of issues and challenges in an atmosphere of dignity and respect. She has been in clinical practice for over 20 years and brings with her a wealth of experience and knowledge. Sharon is known for her intelligence and expertise and her dynamic style and her compassion and dedication in her work with clients. In addition to her practice as a psychotherapist, she has previously held positions as Assistant Executive Director of the ARC and as Managing Partner of Addictions Assessment and Counseling Associates. Sharon has many community affiliations, including...
So nice to see you tonight, even though it's Lag BaOmer and many people are otherwise involved. When I was asked for the topic, what I wanted to speak about tonight, I right away jumped at the chance to speak about money. And why do you think I wanted to speak about money? Because money is a subject, money in people's marriage, it's a subject that people shy away from. Just the mention of money and you find people cringe. And I think by the end of the talk tonight, you will hear me say the word money so many times that you'll say to yourself, enough already, I don't want to hear that word anymore. Because it is a sensitive issue. So is it safe to talk about money? Well, before, during, and after. Good comment. Is it safe? And why is it so important to talk about money? Well, it's important because all our hopes, our plans, our family and individual goals are tied to money. Money determines our ability to make choices, life choices. Money is so connected to our hopes and dreams, to our sense of security and self-worth, to our core emotions. So our expectations around ourselves and our family are played out through finances. Certainly there are many myths out there that people live happily ever after, love conquers all. But we know that love may move mountains, but money can crumble the strongest marriage. According to research by Professor Jeffrey Dew, a professor of family studies at Utah State University, couples who report that they disagree over finances at least once a week are 30% more likely to divorce than couples who disagree about finances a few times a month. People may say that their divorce was a result of fights over money, but in truth, it's rarely about money, either lack of or abundance. More likely, the romance obscured the emotional baggage at first. When fighting about money, couples often substitute money for other unresolved issues in the relationship. So whatever is problematic in the relationship, money will bring it out in a fight. And this is how couples blow off steam about other upsets in their relationships. Fights and disagreements about money are so much more intense and they're so much more negative than other topics that people argue about, that couples argue about. There's so much more underlying intention when it comes to these arguments. And a good example of this is given in the Gemara, in Gemara Sanhedrin, Daf Zayin Amud Aleph, brings out about a metaphor about discord between a husband and wife. And it talks about a man who says that when our love was strong, we could have lain on a bed the width of the tip of a sword. But now that our love is not so strong, even a bed that's 60 meters is not wide enough. What does that mean? When things are going well in a relationship, things work out, and even a tiny bed we can learn to cope with, we can learn to manage. When the love is not strong, their issues are complicated in a relationship, no matter how big the bed is, the couple are not going to be happy. So the reality is you're going to fight about money, and everybody does. We talk about money in society in hushed tones because talking about money is a taboo. We talk a lot about our personal experiences. We talk about our personal information. We share our personal information with all kinds of people. But when it comes to talk about money, that's private. That's personal. And I remember when I was in my 20s and I lived in Israel, I was a teacher, a high school teacher. And I remember sitting in the teacher's room at a break, and all the teachers pulled out their pay stubs, and there they were sitting and discussing how much money they made. In America, would you think you would see that happen? I don't think so. And I was not part of that. I was kind of shied away. I'm the product of an American culture. And yet in Israel, to ask people about their age is extremely taboo. And here I'm talking about people in their 20s, and I thought that was so strange. You can't ask people how old they are, but you can ask people how much money they make? Different. But you see, it's very culturally influenced. So money is an emotionally volatile issue, and people tend to be emotional and reactive about money, not strategic. There's enormous pressure to produce money nowadays, and we live in a very materialistic society where there are a lot of seductive messages that have to do with the need for more. A bigger house, a remodeled house, a new car, the best car, a new computer, a flat screen TV, a BlackBerry, but not just a plain BlackBerry, an Android, an iPhone. And these aren't messages that only we receive. Our children and our grandchildren are hearing and taking in these messages too. These messages pressure all of us, whether we are older generation or a younger generation. The constant push for newer and better creates a sense of never being satisfied with what you have. And your sense of fulfillment is disturbed, and disappointment sets in. So we have to look at our values and the meaning of money in our life. When you think about what money means to you and what it represents to each of us, what words do you associate with money? And don't think of it only now in terms of how you are at this particular point in your life. When you were a child, throughout the years, when the word money comes up, what word comes to mind? Power. Good. What else? Security. What else? Options, alternatives, choices. Good. What else? Those are some of the positive things. Power, options, choices. What are the negative things? Okay. Debt. What else? Poverty. That's a scary point. Poverty, yes. What else? Sense of accomplishment, sense of security. Self-worth. So people see themselves in different ways that are played out through money. Money is a very powerful word and a very powerful concept. And how we spend money on our loved ones is also very important. We can make our partners either feel valued or belittled in a relationship. And the TV that we watch, the media, encourages us by advertisements to view spending as a means of expressing affection, whether for ourselves or for others. Every kiss begins with K.
K Jewelers. What does that mean to us? That you buy someone a gift of jewelry from K Jewelers and you will be loved. Every kiss begins with K. L'Oreal makeup has a commercial that's out there, and it says, because I'm worth it. Self-indulgence. I should give to myself. How will I feel good about myself? By spending money on myself. Here again, the constant messages of spend money, and this is how you show love, this is how you show affection, this is how you show value and worth. And is this really the value that we want to accept? We have to look at how our relationship towards money changes throughout our lives. The history of our attitudes in our family of origin about money. When we went shopping when we were little children with our mom and our dad, and we were in the toy store, oh, Mommy, buy me this, oh, Daddy, buy me this. And how many times did we hear no, no, no? And how did we feel about the no's that we heard? No, I can't afford it. No, you can't have it. No, you shouldn't be asking it. And when you were small, when you were 5 or 6 or 7, did you say to yourself, why do I always have to have no? Why does my friend, and maybe you said this to your parents, why does my friend have it? All my friends in school have a fill in the blank, a Cabbage Patch Kid. All my friends in school have an iPod Nano. I'm the only one that doesn't have it. Now, this is true of public schools as it is of firm schools, and the competition, even when the kids wear uniforms, is still there. The boys that go to YTT know that the North Face jacket is the jacket to have. Now, is it necessary to have a jacket that costs $100? That is a question. So to look at what is our feeling of money that we get from our family of origin is a very important fact, and has to do with how we deal with money in our current lives. Do we look at money as a sense of pride and self-worth, with a sense of being taken care of, or feeling vulnerable? Were there fears about being poor or going without that we lived with growing up that we don't want replicated with our children and grandchildren? Do you have the feeling of, I didn't have when I was a child, I never had the opportunity to go to summer camp, and my children and my grandchildren will always have that opportunity because this is something that I carry with me, for example. I'm not saying me personally, but we carry these things from our family of origin into our older life. What about our spouse? What about our partner's early experiences? And how do they differ from ours? Do they understand that sending children to summer camp may be an issue to me, but my spouse may not understand why that's such a big deal? Why is that so important? So the kids don't go to summer camp, so what? But as a child, that is something that stayed with me and continues into my family in my current life. How we feel about birthday gifts. Was a birthday celebrated by a card, or was a big splash made over a birthday? And because my parents, let's say when I was a child, made a big splash over a birthday, is it necessary in my married life that my husband make a big splash over a birthday also? And if he doesn't come with that kind of tradition, that kind of culture of celebrating birthdays, how is that going to affect my expectations of him or my disappointment with him? If your family experienced a bankruptcy or extreme difficulty all through life as a child, you knew not to ask. You knew not to pressure your family. And how does this carry forth into your adult life and into your marital relationship? It certainly does. This is the baggage, for good, bad, or otherwise, that all of us carry with us. Do we remember tensions and arguments between our parents about looking at the checkbook and there's overspending, arguments that made us cringe and hide in our bedrooms and close the door and put our hands over our ears and not want to think about, maybe mommy doesn't love daddy anymore, when they're arguing about money. So children take on different messages. And I remember a story when my son was about 9 or 10 years old, and my son was very into baseball cards, collecting baseball cards and packets of baseball cards, and every birthday amongst the boys, they would trade at recess baseball cards, and you had to have a so-and-so card that was in mint condition. Now, what is mint condition? Oh, it means that the ends couldn't be folded over or dog-eared or whatever. And I remember him coming home one day and saying to me, "Ima, you're not going to believe this. My friend's brother is selling his sets of baseball cards that are in mint condition. He's selling 5 or 10 sets of baseball cards." I said, "Okay, but you're not going to believe why he's selling them. He's selling them because he wants to buy a ring for a girl." I said, "Well, what do you mean he wants to buy a ring for a girl?" "Well, he's getting engaged to a girl. This girl's going to be his kala, and so he's selling all of his baseball cards. How could he do it?" As if that was the biggest stupidity in the whole world. And I looked at my son and I said, "Yes, sweetheart." And he said, "Do you mean you think that that's a good idea?" And I said, "I think that you don't understand the value, but when you meet the right girl, you will. And maybe your set of baseball cards will be on the market too." And he said, "No, never." He did get married, thank God. He still has the baseball cards, I think, but his kids don't trade baseball cards. I think they have Rebbe cards instead. Okay, what is the point I want to bring out here? Throughout our lives, the value of money and the things that are of value to us changes. My son at 10 could not understand how his friend's brother could give up this beloved set of mint condition baseball cards. And these are the values that children begin to understand along the life cycle. What is a priority to us at different points in time? Do you remember your first job? Was it as a babysitter? Were you a camp counselor? And the messages that were conveyed to you by your parents of, "No, you don't have to go get a job, that's for other people," or "In our family, if we want something, how do we make it happen? We go out there and we make it happen on our own. We don't expect others to give it to us. We don't have a sense of entitlement. We have a sense of make it happen." These are the values that are all involved in money, and with money in our lives and in our family lives. If your parents were Holocaust survivors, then you have a different sense of what money and the value of money, the representation of money or of having was in their lives, and how their sense of insecurity, that the rug could be literally pulled out from under them at any time, what that means to the children of Holocaust survivors. And then coming to the United States and rebuilding everything from start. One of my very dear friends is the child of people who were survivors who were in the concentration camps. And I remember her saying this, and my Yiddish is not wonderful, so if I don't say it great, I hope you'll understand. And maybe you'll be able to correct me, but she said she was raised with the concept of hast du nicht, bist du nicht. What does that mean? And you'll correct me here. If you have, you are. If you don't have, you're not. In other words, if you have possessions, if you have money, you're a somebody. Without money, without possessions, you're nothing. You're nobody. And so this very good friend of mine later went into a loveless marriage for money. Did not end well. But these are the messages that she carried with her
that having is more important than any of the other things in a relationship. To say to a child, to raise a child with the notion that if you have, then you're somebody, and if you don't, then you're nothing and nobody, will cause them to make different choices in their life. Different life choices, different crucial choices. That's not what they were talking about. They were talking in the United States. They weren't talking about a script. Yes. And they were a product of this experience. She was a product of this experience. So when we look at how we enter a relationship, we look at men and women differently and how they view money differently. Often men use money as a scorecard and can struggle with self-esteem when there are financial problems. Women, on the other hand, tend to see money more as a security issue, and so they may gravitate towards the rainy day fund. At the beginning of a marriage, there's a lot of focus on all of the new stuff. The new furniture, the sheets, the pillowcases, the jewelry, the furniture, and this creates a sense of everything coming to me. These are all the things that are coming to me. Not necessarily as much for the boy, but the boy may have in mind, where's my silver atara? What do you mean I'm only getting a talus? What happened to the silver atara? And I know a friend of mine actually who said to me, my future son-in-law said, what about the silver atara? And I was thinking to myself, I didn't get a silver atara until I was married for 30 years. So what are the messages? What are the messages that we carry into the relationship? The expectations. The girl who expects a diamond ring that is X, and when she does or doesn't get it, how does she cope with that? How does that carry into the relationship? How does her feeling and her relationship for her in-laws then carry forth from there? All of these come down to our values and our assumptions and our expectations around money. So what are really the best things that we need to look at in terms of our own best practices when it comes down to money? The first thing is honesty, full disclosure, removing the mysteries, putting the cards on the table in black and white. Now, you need to gather a lot of information, but in order to have an open relationship, and an open money relationship, you need to be honest about what you have and what you don't have. Secrecy with respect to money often leads to feelings of betrayal. Dr. Stanley, professor of psychology at the University of Denver, says, money is the intersecting point where couples make most of their decisions. So decisions around money determine the balance of power and control within the relationship. Sometimes there's an expectation on one of the partners that since I am the one who earns the money, I should be the one to decide how the money is spent. And why should I be the one to decide? Because that's what my father did. And that's the way it is. But very often that doesn't go over well with a spouse who expects to have input into how money is spent in the relationship, and this can be a source of significant conflict in a marriage. Very often we have issues now with a wife making more money than her husband, and you think that would maybe be something that's a problem in the society out there, but this is a significant problem and issue in the right wing in the frum community and in Hasidic circles. I was very surprised. A week ago, I came back from New York. I was at a training for couples in New York that was sponsored by Nefesh and at YU, and there were about 400 clinicians there, and among the 400 clinicians there were a significant number of professional Hasidic men and women who talked about how the issue of women making more money and having more power, or feeling that they should have more power, is really an issue in the Hasidic community, and I thought that was very, very interesting. I also thought it was very interesting that in New York there are bachelor's and master's levels level trained clinicians, which, trained, in other words, they're college educated. Hasidic men and women, men with long payas, and I see there on their pins it says so-and-so LCSW, which means that person has a master's in social work. And these are Hasidic people in New York. Now, this hasn't reached Chicago yet, but I find that very, very interesting, a sign of our times. Okay, but he's one in this entire community, and you're talking about young men and young Hasidic women who are now being trained to work in their communities, which I just think is wonderful. I was so heartened to see that.
Someone told me, it was very interesting, somebody, when they did social work at MA, and therefore, whenever they got a Jewish client, they weren't working for like Haskell.
Well, very often the client will specifically look for someone who knows their culture and speaks their language. But on the other hand, very often a client will look for someone outside of their community because of the privacy issues and the shame issue. They don't want people to know what is going on in their circles, and they will look to go outside the community for treatment. But it happens both ways. Okay, so when we look at a couple going into a marriage, we look at different money personalities. Different money personalities, savers versus spenders, people who squirrel the money under the mattress, people who save for a rainy day, and a lot of these types of people's money personalities, again, find their roots in their family of origin. It's necessary for people to know what pushes your financial buttons. Is it hearing things about, did you balance the checkbook? Which reverberates to the fights that you heard as a child, or sentences that start with, I've made a decision, that's said to you as a spouse. I've made a decision. What does that say? I've made a unilateral decision? Then who am I? Then where is my input into what goes on in this family, and how important am I? When someone says, your partner in life, your teammate in life says to you, I've made a decision. These are things that have to be worked through and are very important to work through. What is the goal, the financial goal of a couple? The goal is to create a team in relation to money, to develop financial chemistry. You know, going into a relationship, one of the crucial components of a marriage is physical chemistry. What I posit to you is another very important aspect to work on is financial chemistry. Schedule financial dates. I know of two couples. One schedules annual financial dates when? The Sunday after the end of Pesach. Why the Sunday after the end of Pesach? Tax season is over and? Tuition. And the Pesach dishes are put away. Yeah, and tuition comes up also. Yeah. So they schedule their annual financial date the Sunday after the end of Pesach. Another couple I know schedules their financial date the Sunday after the first of the year. So that's a good time to have a recap the Sunday after January 1st, where they can sit down and look at their budget, where they can talk about shared plans, goals, dreams, and budget in an informed way and create a shared vision. Now, the way they budget and the way it's necessary to budget is to get real, not to live in a fairy tale, to look at where your money goes. And both partners need to know where your money goes. You need to be honest, not estimate. Share with your partner the amount of debt you have, student loans. Look at your expenditures that are fixed, those that are essential. Look at your savings, and if you have it and if you don't. Look at your credit card debt. we have to think about savings, because savings doesn't happen on our own, and money does not grow on trees, as we all know. And one of my friends who lives in New York says to me, she lives near Central Park, and she says, there are 26,000 trees in Central Park. I want to know why not one of them is a money tree. They planted 26,000 trees, not one of them is a money tree. So, what's that? Oh, really? Tell me where you live.
What do they call it? Silver dollar.
Okay. Couples need to talk about their feelings about investing and how to invest wisely. Certain people have more risk tolerance for taking risk in investing, others do not. To look at retirement planning and emergency planning is also extremely important. And to compromise when talking about your needs and your wants and how you feel emotionally about what happens with your money. Negotiate and renegotiate with each other. You make life decisions together, you can change them. The goal, again, is to create a sense of team, a bond, a shared financial dream, and explore your dreams out loud. We think about our dreams in terms of money, and what does your money mean to you? What do you want it to do for you? What do you want to achieve with it? And I think it's important. I'm going to give you an exercise, and when I do workshops, this is one of the things that we do, and we don't have a whole lot of time to do it, but I'd like each of you to look at this, and I'll explain to you how to do it and how I work with it throughout the lifespan. That's right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Well, wait a second. Let me explain to you how you deal with this. What are your goals? What do you want to achieve, obtain, or accomplish? But it's not only what do you want to achieve, obtain, or accomplish, it's also what do you not want to see happen. And this isn't only with respect to you individually, it could be with regard to your children, your family. So what I'd like you to do is write down for 1 year from now, what are your 3 goals? Pick 3 of them. In 1 year? Okay, that could be. But think in terms of the framework of 1 year. Then I'd like you to address what your goals are for a 5-year time frame, and then what your goals are for a 30-year time frame. And remember, this is what you want to achieve or what you want not to. Think about the things that are important to you. And this can have to do with many realms of your life. It can have to do with vacation. It can have to do with education, with learning, with retirement. Okay, now I'm going to ask you to go back and look at what you wrote. Look at the 3 items that you put in each category and put them in the order of importance. Number 1 being the most important, number 3 being number 3 in importance. Maybe you did it that way already. Okay. Now this is an important tool for you, because you are writing these things at this particular point in time, but if you look back to when you were in your 20s, in your 30s, undoubtedly you would have filled this form out quite differently. And my guess is that if you hold on to this and you do something similar with your spouse and compare what they have, you will see and be able to focus in on what are the things, what are the issues, what are the goals, the life goals that are important to you. And from there, you'll be able to focus on how we, in other words, you and your partner, how we can go about achieving these goals. What's different in my goals from what my partner wrote? And how differently will we address our goals in 10 years? So I ask couples to hold on to this. And to, when they have their anniversary, their financial dates, to refer back and to look at what they said. Because, again, it's not engraved in stone. But you may look at what your partner wrote, if your partner shares it with you, and hopefully they do, and say, oh, I didn't know that was that important to you. I didn't think that that's such a big deal. That's easily achievable. That's easily attainable. And sometimes you may look at it as, well, how realistic is that? That's where the discussions come in and the need to share. Okay, so would anyone like to share any of the goals that they have for their 1 year?
Keeps repeating itself.
That's okay. That's okay. You will find that they will repeat themselves. Why? Because those are the things that are important to you.
Right. So get out of debt, stay out of debt, and continue.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I don't know if that's in a year, but depending on...
Okay, but then to look at it in a year, you would say to less. Okay. Diminish the debt.
Diminish, and then as we're going with that is to start saving more, and the goal of all that is because I'd like to have more free time to be able to do more chesed, have to work less. My ideal is to be able to just do chesed full time and learn Torah and not have to.
So you see that these things are a means to an end. And the end is not necessarily something that has to do with money per se, but the focus on what I need for my money to do for me or not do for me. I need for my debt not to increase so that I can do this, which will allow me to do that. Very good example. Does anyone want to give another example? Pay off your mortgage. Okay. You want to talk about that? And all of the stresses that would free you from and allow you to do different things in your life? Okay. Anybody want to share anything else? Anyone?
Yeah, I have to talk about it.
Sorry.
Okay. Well, I said you could put in the positive or the negative.
To have money to visit my daughter every year, that they should visit once a year.
Okay. So another excellent example of money in itself, it's not the having the money, it's what the money does for you. I want my money to be able to give me the opportunity to enhance my relationships with my children and my grandchildren. This is what our relationship with money is all about. And that is why it's so important that we talk about this nasty word, money. Because it's not just what it is, you're a money digger or whatever it is. Money allows us to live the life that we want to live, to prioritize the things that are important in our life, and to allow us to look at how we can get there. It also gives us hope, which is so crucial in our lives, to be hopeful about what tomorrow brings, particularly in these difficult economic times. There are a lot of stresses now. People are losing jobs. There are a lot of homes in foreclosure, and it's easy to be taken down and feel depressed and hopeless when there are a lot of negative things going on. So to focus in a hopeful and a positive way is very important. Very important in terms of a life strategy, also in terms of a money strategy. Okay, so I hope this was helpful to you to do this exercise, and I hope you take it home and you work with it, and not just in the garbage. I hope you save it, because it's an excellent tool and one that you can use into the future. Okay, what I want to talk about now is bank accounts. Pardon me? So wait a minute, I want to know where your baseball cards are. Oh my. Are you sure one of your brothers didn't decide to walk away with the baseball cards in mint condition in the box the way you brought them? Okay, but these were decisions that you made, and my guess is that you made them for very important reasons. I'm not going to go into your own personal reasons, but my guess is when you make big ticket purchases, they're for big reasons. Okay, let's talk about bank accounts. Now, bank accounts is another area that can be a source of a great deal of conflict. My feeling about bank accounts, whether in some families there are separate bank accounts, his, hers, and ours being the one where money is deposited for the household expenses. There isn't one solution that's one-size-fits-all. Every family, every couple has their own particular needs, their own financial styles, and each couple has to figure out what works for them, what works best for them. And you have different kinds of families. For example, in a family where there was a divorce and a remarriage, where there are children from this
family, from that family, his, hers, and ours, you'll have different demands on money and access to checkbooks and access to finances that create different needs. And so, as I said, different styles of checkbooks really depend on what the needs of the couple are. The important issue really is that one shouldn't be beholden to another for money. One shouldn't feel in a relationship that they have to beg for whatever their needs are, either personal or familial. That everyone in a relationship has to have a certain amount of financial autonomy, financial independence. There has to be a certain amount of money that you can spend without having to give a din v'cheshbon, without having to say, I spend 2 cents here and $3 here, and why did you spend it here, and why? There has to be, every individual needs a certain amount of financial autonomy. Now, that certainly needs to be tempered by accountability. It can't be that one person decides I'm going to do whatever I want, however I want, as in I made a decision and here it is. I came home with a dog. Lovely. And who's going to walk that dog? These kinds of things have to be spoken through. They have to be decided jointly. But the importance, particularly with respect to checkbooks, has to take into consideration the need for financial autonomy. Okay. One needs to know their spending habits. And what triggers your spending habits? Is it the word sale or clearance? Is it the fact that there's going to be end of the year sale at Best Buy and you're an electronics junkie, that you just have to have the newest and latest gadgetry? What is it that triggers your spending? Is it an emotional feeling? Do you do retail therapy? Are you feeling down in the dumps? And is it a pair of shoes out there that you feel is going to make you feel better? And you need to look at what are these triggers for you, what it means for you. Okay, the recession, an economic downturn, and how that has affected us. And we know that it has deepened over the last 2 years. Issues like foreclosure, job insecurities, shrinking retirement funds are certain to make an increase in marital tension. And when a couple faces fundamental differences in spending versus saving, investing versus squirreling money under the mattress, the challenge can be that more acute. Money definitely matters for contemporary American marriages, according to the State of Our Unions, an annual survey by the University of Virginia's National Marriage Project and the Center for Marriage and Families at the New York-based Institute for American Values. Although studies find that emotional intimacy, sexual satisfaction, and individual happiness rank at the top of marital aspirations, the Great Recession that began in 2007 exposed an economic factor, says W. Bradford Wilcox, the director of the National Marriage Project. Wilcox says that the economic downturn reminds us that marriage is more than an emotional relationship. It's also an economic partnership
and a social safety net. So we need to look at the many aspects of marriage, and particularly what the downturn, how hard economic times affects a marriage, sometimes in the positive, sometimes in the negative. The economic downturn is at the same time both a challenge and an opportunity. The bigger the challenge, the greater the opportunity to make significant change, with a keen eye on costs and expenditures while holding true to our values and goals. There's also a multi-generational living that's on the rise, because younger families who are losing their jobs are moving back home with mom and dad, and sometimes grandparents are moving in. So we're having a return to the larger family, all huddling under one roof, and that can be both positive and very stressful, not so positive. We look to the future. We want to look at what is the legacy we want to pass down to our children and grandchildren with respect to money. How do you teach your children about money? Do you eliminate the baggage that you have brought into your relationship, whether they be hard times or good times, in the way you teach your children values about money? How do you communicate your values regarding materialism? Do you give your children an allowance? Is an allowance an important thing? Do you teach them that having a job and making their own money, their sense of their own satisfaction at having produced, is that of value to you? When they see something that they want, do you provide it for them, or do you encourage them to contribute towards the purchase of something that they want? As the tree is judged by its fruit and the artisan by his product, so a parent achieves personal significance by the moral and intellectual success of his child. So this is the legacy that we carry on afterwards, and this is why money. Question. I think that in a situation like that, it's best to dialogue in advance, and particularly when you know that you're dealing with somebody who has significant issues over power and control. Maybe she would have thought about voicing what her plan was. This isn't necessarily a good or a bad thing. It's the agreement, the contract that they negotiated. And maybe if she said to him, look, it's not okay with me that you are saying no, or that you are telling me no, I can't do this and this. This is something that I feel that I need to do. So if you don't want to subsidize this, then I need to think of a way to create income for myself so that I can do what I feel is important to me to do. We all have our issues, and yes, maybe that person feels that he needs to be controlling in that way. What will it mean to him to give up some of that control over the money? Here, clearly, the couple need to be talking about this.
I'm a favor he's a spender, generally speaking, and it goes back, way back. We know, like you're saying, family origin. Growing up, we were always very, so I grew up feeling not only not entitled, but I'm going to go out and earn the money. I don't feel that I anything's coming to me, I always felt it's important to save because you never know when you won't get the money and things like that. So where my husband's coming from, he always felt deprived as a child, felt he didn't have enough toys. So this is that. I said, okay, I understand. That's a need for you. You need a gadget. But I need to also feel like we're not... So we have what we call our Sharon bias fund. So if we can't agree on something, we agree to what amount we are not going to agree on. So then they'll go towards it. And just like you spend money on any kind of goods article, a show of bias is so important because to us, people are more important than things, even though we each have our baggage and why we're coming into this from different places. But if we can understand and respect that, so one of the things that he did was so as I joked when we were dating, we both have a lot of baggage, but at least it's matching.
We have a lot of baggage, but at least
so we knew that we already are coming and we respect each other's old stuff, as we call it. And sometimes he really knows I'm coming from a place, again, money's more of a security thing maybe for me. So I would ask, I'm the one basically who handles very periodically, but it makes me feel calmer to know, even if I know, okay, we're in debt, I know how much we're in debt, I know what we have to do to get out of debt, I feel more of a sense of
security.
I know it's all in a Shemaim and I got issues to deal with, and so he did the chesed to me by allowing me to just take the reins. But we're very careful to always talk to each other about things, and before we go to anything that would be considered major by us, could be anything, we talk about it. And again, when we get to that path of, well, I really like this thing, and okay, that goes part of our Shalom bias fund. But
sometimes you don't know why it is that you need to have.
Right. You need those shoes. Right.
My mother, may she rest in peace, was big into shoes, and just more shoes and more shoes and more shoes. My father, on the other hand, was big into hammers.
Yeah.
There wasn't a time that he would go into Home Depot that he couldn't buy a hammer or a wrench. And the number of hammers and wrenches that we had to get rid of when my father passed away was, I could have opened up my own Home Depot. So this was their trade-off. Okay, any other questions or comments? We all have baggage. So what is be honest means this is who I am. This is who I am, and this is how I was raised, and love me for what I am, but I can't really tell you why it is I feel this way about my need for seeing the checkbook every day and making sure that we're not spending one penny over, but my world comes crashing down when I feel like there isn't enough money for food in the checkbook. You may feel like, what's the big deal? We have savings, we have this, we have that. But I don't come from that because we went through a bankruptcy when I was small, and we had to find extra measures, and I always, when I went to school, I was always looking over my shoulder because I didn't want the children to know that I couldn't afford to pay for school lunch, that my family didn't have the money. So this is who I am. I am a product of my experiences. I'm a product of my life. And coming into a marriage, if you think that a brand new husband and Kala share all this baggage with them, with each other. They do not.
What do you mean share?
They do not share with their soon-to-be spouses all of their baggage.
They often don't even know their baggage. They think it's...
And very often they will say, well, that doesn't matter. That was the past.
Right.
That was then. I've moved on from that. You can be...
But no, I do know, like a child of survivor, that one of the things they have is this, they need to see their money and have it liquid, very liquid, shall we say, because their experience was they literally everything was taken from them and they were shipped off the camp. So they think you have to have with you.
You have to be ready.
So you can be ready to run. And so
These are the enduring vulnerabilities that people carry throughout their lives. And there isn't anything that you can rationalize with them to make them feel that it's okay. No one is going to send you tomorrow to a concentration camp. This is part of who they are. And these are the things, the adaptations in the here and now that they do to soothe and comfort themselves to make sure that they will feel okay.